Hi, I'm Alex at HD Labels, and today I'm going to do a full demonstration of the Afinia L801 colour label printer. So let's take a look at the L801. So the L801 is a fixed unit. You have a fixed unwinder here, so this is where we will load our material and feed it into the back of the machine. So in here there is the print zone, so you see the print head, the tubes where the ink is carried to the head. And then if we open up the clamshell, you can see right inside where the material goes. So if a label sticks, it's really easy to retrieve. So if we close that up, well actually, just one last thing, the cutter is built into the end here. But if I close this up, you've got one more door on the printer which allows you access to the inks and also the waste ink pad below. So you'll notice you've got 5 ink cartridges, cyan, yellow, magenta, and then 2 black. It will use both blacks at the same time, so it should in theory run out of black at the same time. Black is the most commonly printed colour, so that's why there's 2 here. Each cartridge contains 250 millilitres of ink, so you've got basically half a litre of black ink in the printer to start with. So there is a single front screen to the L801 with a power button and then 4 buttons that change as you use them. So once you press a button, the imagery above changes and the image that is above the button becomes its new function. So going back to the main screen, you can see ink levels, whether the machine is paused, contains material, or is running a job. It's very simple. There is a brief explanation at the top of the screen telling you what it's doing. Currently it's printer online, but if it was printing or servicing a head or had a jam, it would be displayed here. So let's load some material into the printer. I have my roll of labels here. It runs a 76mm core only. So if we open up the lid, the core is loosened. Using this on the side, we're able to slide our labels on, an external guide to go on here, and then we tighten the labels up. So now they don't move on the core. We then thread beneath the dancer arm and then poke the labels into the back of the printer. The printer will automatically detect the labels and then take them in. That is the machine loaded. So once the material is loaded, you will now see above the second button a roll of materials with some arrows. That's showing you it's loaded. To unload the machine, you basically press this button and it will automatically retract the labels. Do not attempt to manually pull the labels backwards through the machine. Right, so let's talk through the Afinia driver. So on the first page here, things you need to set. Ideally, you want to be printing at 6 inches per second. If you're just doing text, then you might get away with 12 inches per second. But if you're printing a full colour label and you want accuracy of print, the best it can be, 6 inches per second is still really fast, but it's highest resolution, so 1600 dpi, and it will also give you the least sort of movement during the print because obviously it's a lot more smoother and calmer and slightly slower. We're choosing our material profile. So if it's a plain paper, it will lay down slightly less ink if you do choose plain paper. We tend to run it as a standard premium glossy label. It just gives us the most vibrant, most beautiful print. So we want to print borderless, so that's full edge-to-edge print. So we are going right up to the edge of the label. And then the interesting one, if I've got labels sort of pre-set up, I can choose them here. But if you are setting your label size, this is where you would do that. So you need to create the right page size for the product you're printing. So your artwork and your page size need to match. That's how you will get your print position correct. So let's say we want to do 150mm wide by 100. I will call this something relevant. So I could call it 150 by 100, or I could call it box label, something that's relevant to you. So it might be a part number to a job. So if I save that now, hit OK, you'll see box label appears in my list. That's the label size I want to print to. So moving on to the layout tab, I wouldn't really change anything in here. Always keep the printer original size. If you start getting the printer or the driver to help you by reducing it by a percentage or so on, you will find that your print positioning will become a bit of a nightmare because you'll be fighting the automatic adjustments the printer is doing or the driver is doing. So really, you'll use the media tab. That's the only other tab I think. So this is where we choose between our material types. So whether it's interlabel gap, black registration mark, or continuous. You can choose it to cut every label if wanted, but actually we're just going to do roll to roll and print from the first label. Once it's finished printing that roll, it will then cut automatically. So let's say I ask it to print 300 labels, it will print the 300 labels, and then at the very last label it will cut. You have your adjustments here, offset, These are the main ones for the sort of hard copies, hard settings for the machine. And here are the local settings for this particular job. So when we print our label, you might find there's a white gap at the top and a white gap on the side. So here is where you adjust the print positioning, so either up, down, left, right, so that you can center your print on the design. You might find that you have your print exactly central, but there still seems to be a white border all the way around the outside of your print. Then what you can do here is increase, go back to the general tab and increase the size. You might find that actually 151, 101, so maybe add a mil or a mil and a half. It's really do it, print it and see what it looks like. But you might find that will allow you to have a little bit more bleed and therefore cover the full label material. Actually, when we produce a label in-house, we will peel off the label, and if there's the tiniest of outline on the backing material of excess ink, this is only really if we're doing full edge-to-edge ink printing, then we know that we've covered the whole label and there's a little bit of room if there's a slight tolerance in the print process. Another thing, when you are aligning your print, you need to print 2 labels on a Memjet printer. The first label is always ever so slightly out of position. So once the first label is printed, the outer rollers grab the label and therefore the tension changes ever so slightly on the roll. So label 2 onwards will be at a slightly different position. So if you spend ages lining up label 1 and then come to print your job, label 1 will look right, but label 2 onwards will be slightly out of position. So always print 2 and line up the second label. But other than that, we have a color adjustment here, so you can change saturation and so on if you really want to. But there are no other settings really in the driver to worry about. So now, if we flip to our artwork, so I'm using Nice Label here. I've imported a PDF from before, so if I now ask this to print, we're just going to do 9 copies of this. I hit print, and away we go. So there are our printed labels. For more information, samples, or to come in and have a go on the printer yourself, please feel free to get in touch and talk to the team at HD Labels. Thanks for watching.